Hello everyone, this is Effie and I am back with another holiday card using our Fresh Cut Poinsettia and Holiday Cones outline sets. I'm going to start off by heat embossing this gorgeous poinsettia and the different foliage elements from both sets in some silver embossing powder. I use Brutus Monroe's silver. I can't remember the name of his silver, but it's a really gorgeous embossing powder. After I spooned on, or rather poured on the embossing powder, I heat set everything with my heat tool, and then I went ahead and just started coloring with my zig markers. I'm going to color in my poinsettia with my base layer first, and I'm using number 29 Geranium Red, and I'm using the Zig Clean Color Real Brush tip markers. These are really amazing water-based markers, and they basically changed my crafty life, and if you've ever used them, I think you would feel the same way too. So after I color in the base layer with the 29 Geranium Red, I'm going to just add in some darker shading with a number 24 Wine Red, and each time I go off the paper onto the paper towels, I'm just drying off my brush because it just means I had too much water on it and I didn't want to dilute that color too much. So that's just what I'm doing. All the supplies that I use in this video will be linked in the YouTube description box below. Also, I'm just going to turn on some music as I color the rest of this panel. And don't worry, all the zig markers that I've used, the titles or the names will pop up on the screen as I use them. So enjoy the music, guys. once I finish coloring everything in, I'm going to die cut all of the floral elements with the coordinating die cuts that are available in the shop now. So after I run the entire panel through my die cutting machine, and after I die cut everything, it took a while because there were some extra leaves, I'm going to start blending my background panel. Now I'm starting with our Lofty Mint ink. It's a really gorgeous light minty ink, and I'm using a mini ink blender, and I'm just going to sponge on some color, and I'm going from the edge to kind of the middle of the paper, but I'm not going to blend too much ink towards the middle because I want there to be a really nice gradation. I really want the middle portion of that panel to stay as light as I possibly could without being too white, I guess. So I want the middle portion to be white, and then there's going to be that blending on both sides of that white. So after I finish blending the Lofty Mint, I'm going to just sponge a tiny bit of our bright emerald dye ink to the edges, as you see here. But again, I'm not going to ruin that Lofty Mint portion. After I finish blending my mint, I'm going to clean off my craft mat, and then I'm going to blend some rose quartz dye ink on the opposite side. You want to make sure that you clean off your craft mat because then you're going to end up with a muddy mess on your card panel. I didn't show it on camera, but I am using a different sponge for the pink ink. So I'm using the rose quartz as the base layer for this portion of the blending. And after I finish blending the rose quartz, I'm going to go in with some soft garnet dye ink. And this is our ruby layering inks. And I think they're maybe one of my favorite sets in our Couture Color ink collection. As I'm blending, I'm going in circular motions, and I'm going from my craft mat onto my cardstock panel. You never want to go directly onto your card panel after you've sponged on the ink onto your blending tool, because then you're going to leave some harsh edges on your cardstock, and you don't want that. So after I finish blending my mint and my pink or rubies, I'm going to smush on some white pigment ink. This is our Hampton white pigment ink. I smushed it on an acrylic block, and then I add a tiny bit of water from my aqua brush, and I'm just going to start flicking the brush off of the block onto my panel. And this is just going to add a really nice random splatters to your cardstock. It's going to add a nice touch at the end. You're going to see. I learned this trick from Julie Ebersole. She showed this in one of her videos a while back. If you don't have a block or an aqua brush, you can use a toothbrush and some white paint if you have on hand. That works too. If you've never tried this technique before, I would suggest that you practice on some scratch paper beforehand and not on your finished blended panel, so that you know exactly how much force you should apply as you're flicking your paintbrush. So next I'm just going to cut out an A2 size glossy fine silver glitter panel, and this is created from our adhesive paper, and this is actually going to go right on top of my side folding A2 size card base. I'm using 110-pound cardstock here for my base, since that blended panel is a little bit wet from the splatters. I really love our glossy fine glitter papers. The glitter doesn't rub off at all, and it is super glossy, and the finish is just really beautiful. So after I applied that glossy fine glitter panel over onto the card base, I'm going to assemble my poinsettias and the foliage, and I'm just gluing on the different elements onto each other. Some of my pine tree sprigs, as you see here in the video, are kind of cut off as I had embossed them on the edges of my cardstock earlier, but you're not going to be able to see those cut edges as I adhere them down onto my blended panel, because those cut edges are going to be covered by the poinsettia. So I didn't think it was a big deal that I didn't fully emboss those pine sprigs. Before I glued down my elements, I did trim my blended panel a tiny bit on the top and on the side so that the glitter card base will show through later on. Next, I stamped the sentiment, which is from our holiday confetti set. I stamped it in our Noir dye ink, and I used my Misti to help me position it straight onto my card panel. Next, I adhered that blended panel onto my card base, and then to finish off the card, I glued down some dewdrops that we have in the shop. We have them in 5 and 7 millimeter, and they're just really, really pretty and add a nice finish to the card. For the dewdrops, I use Ranger Multi-Matte Medium because it dries clear. So after I glue down the drops, you won't be able to see the adhesive behind them. And the card is now complete. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. This might be one of my all-time favorite cards. I love the way it came out, and I used some techniques that I've never really used before. So thanks for watching, guys. I will see you next time. Bye.